Tonight on Let It Rip.
I absolutely feel they should not. An assault rifle is just for that, okay? It's not a hunting rifle. It's not for hunting deer in November. That's not what it's about.
How do we stop the gun violence? Fed up, Detroit Police Chief James White expressing his frustration after one of his own is killed in the line of duty. That's one of the topics we'll cover as we discuss the race for governor. But first,
why is it that dead people always vote Democrat? I'm Kevin Rinke.
You've probably seen this campaign ad. So, was Kevin Rinke making a statement about the 2020 election? He joins us tonight with his explanation. And welcome to Let It Rip. Tonight, as we've been doing for the last few weeks, as you know, we're featuring different candidates for both the 13th congressional race and the race for governor. Who wants to unseat Governor Gretchen Whitmer? One man sitting in front of us does. His name is Kevin Rinke. You've seen him on television with the ads. And Kevin, it's good to see you. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
As always, the man who's been moderating the bulk of the debates in this town right now, and our own legal analyst and anchor, Charlie Langton. Together, we'll be talking to you for the next 10 minutes about some things that really matter to the people at home. I want to begin with the news of the week, though. We, of course, just heard our police chief here in Detroit with a tear in his eye and a heavy heart talk about how he's sick and tired of having to hear about these terrible incidents that happened. An assault rifle used to shoot and kill a police officer in Detroit.
And these ridiculous gun crimes across this country, regardless of where you stand politically on owning a weapon, these assault weapons are ridiculous in our communities. And they're causing death. An assault rifle is just for that, okay? It's not a hunting rifle. It's not for hunting deer in November. That's not what it's about.
He says not everyone should be getting their hands on these assault rifles. Do you agree with the chief?
Well, it's obviously a tragedy, and it breaks all of our hearts. That police officer went to work to serve the people of Detroit, not to die for the people of Detroit. And you get a crazy that, for whatever reason, uses a weapon. It could have been a car. It could have been a knife. It could have been any number of things.
But Kevin, a knife would not have wielded the kind of damage that we saw so quickly. And also, of course, just 2 days before, looking at the July 4th, the killing of multiple people, that was also done with an assault rifle.
Yeah.
Where do you stand on guns and specifically assault rifles right now?
Well, it's a very complex issue because I believe in the Constitution, I believe in the Second Amendment, and I support it. I happen to believe in constitutional carry as it's written into the Second Amendment. That said, we see the press focus on the type of weapon that's used. And I want to point out this point, and people need to understand, while it looks like a military weapon, it is not. It functions differently than a military weapon.
It kills people.
Any gun can kill people, but any car can kill people. It's the operator and the intent of the operator.
But you're a hunter, aren't you?
I hunt, I shoot.
But do you have any assault weapons like was used in these cases that we talked about?
I have models of weapons that are similar to those, and I've had them for years, and I have not shot anybody.
Do you have an assault weapon? And you use it for hunting?
I don't use it for hunting. I use it for target shooting.
How do you stop crime in the city of Detroit, especially when people looks like they're using these assault weapons?
Well, I think that law-abiding citizens and regulating law-abiding citizens don't stop what's happening. Look at Chicago and the tragedy. They have red flag laws that were ignored for whatever reason. They failed. They have the strictest or one of the strictest sets of gun laws
Do you favor red flag laws?
No, I don't, actually.
Why not?
Because, for instance, some of the way those red flag laws are written, if you are accused of being mentally unstable, and I get Facebook posts that say I'm a nut every day, is that probable cause to say that I'm unstable, that the police could use to come because somebody accused me?
But in the case of Cremo, who's the suspect, of course, in this case that happened on July 4th, in Highland Park, Illinois, we know for a fact that on several occasions leading up to the shooting, his own father knew that he was mentally unstable, and rightfully so, not because someone on Facebook said so, but because he was deemed unstable, yet he was still able to get his hands on an assault rifle. He wouldn't have been able to do that damage had he had a handgun. We both know that.
Well, we don't know what the outcome would be. and I'm not going to speculate what the outcome would be. He could have shot someone with a handgun. He could have shot someone with a long rifle.
Not 70 rounds, though.
I agree that 70 rounds before the police were able to apprehend him or before he stopped was a significant amount. All right? But I look at the father and say, how irresponsible. Is that culpable to a crime, knowing that your kid is mentally unstable, and then allowing him, and knowing that your child was purchasing not one, but multiple guns over, I think, a 3-day period of time? There are flags that do come up. They don't have to be red flags. They're common sense flags. And parents and neighbors and friends should be as responsible. I find it interesting, and I'm going to finish, Charlie, because we can get censored on social media instantly by the social media companies, but they ignored posts that this kid was putting out there that were threatening to the community and nature. So, you know what? We have an issue.
Let me ask a budget real quick. Chief White seemed to hint that a lot of these people should have been kept in prison. As governor, would you increase the prison budget, which would allow to keep more people in prison longer?
Crime offenders and capital crime offenders?
Well, not capital, any crime offenders.
I'm a law and order type guy. And
would you
somebody
spend more
using
money for prisons in your budget?
Absolutely.
I want to switch gears and talk for a moment about some other big news that, of course, has been coming out. The biggest thing that you ran on so far has been election fraud, dead people on the rolls.
Actually not, Raj.
But one of the biggest ads.
One of the
the ads that you've been running
Right.
have been predominantly focusing on that issue, and comically so with the person who is dressed as the dead person.
But, a Democrat, right?
But we know that the Michigan Auditor General determined that dead voters had no impact on the 2020 election, and 0.03% of the ballots that were dead cast, so to speak, were actually cast from people who were alive when those forms went out. Yet you continue to push that. Do you believe in the big lie?
That ad talks about election integrity, and it was tongue-in-cheek. If anybody needed to fact-check that, they were wasting their time. They could have called me. It's not a factual ad that dead people are voting. And I find it so funny that CNN went out and spent 6 or 7 minutes calling me a liar, and they said, you know, we found that dead Republicans vote too. Well, that's not the point. Election integrity is the point. And we come to, do I vote? Does it count? Are elections fair, safe, and honest? Are people registered? Are they citizens of the state? Do we check and use the voting laws that are in place to verify that there's no actions that can impact the election? Election integrity is an issue. This wasn't about the 2020 election. This isn't about dead people. I think people need to get over them saying, oh, I was poking the Democrats, because if I would have poked a live Democrat, I'd have hurt their feelings. So I poked a dead one, and I hurt their feeling anyway.
You poked the Governor Whitmer. He's a Democrat. You poked the Democrats in your day. Let me ask you this: you've been on the campaign stump talking about the elimination of the personal income tax, 4.2%. Tudor Dixon says that you've got no plan to replace the $12 billion that's lost in the budget because of your plan. Is she wrong?
Absolutely. The one who doesn't have any plan or any knowledge is Tudor. What's so funny? She said that last night at the debate. And here's the truth. We just passed the largest budget in the history of the state of Michigan. In 3.5 years under Gretchen Whitmer, Michigan's government has grown roughly 30%. The last budget that Rick Snyder passed was $55.4 billion. We just passed a $76 billion budget. So if I give back the people of Michigan who are hurting because of inflation, cost of living, and all of the things that are a byproduct of bad leadership and bad decisions in Washington as well as Michigan, if I give them back their $12 billion because they know how to spend their money better than Lansing does, what do we have left? The largest budget in the history of the state of Michigan pre-COVID by $9 billion. boy, I'm really shorting people.
Kevin, I got to ask you one more question before we go here. It's about Donald Trump. We know that he stood shoulder to shoulder with Tudor Dixon, your opponent, and actually took photos, talked about her in the rally, didn't talk about anybody else per name. And then you just released an ad in which you talk about your similarity to Donald Trump. Can you win without Trump's endorsement?
Absolutely. But
Do you want his endorsement?
Of course, absolutely. Donald Trump and I are similar in this. We're outsiders. We're willing to commit our personal money to represent the people that we love and care for. We're willing to apply the business success and the strategies and those learned issues politically to help make Michigan great again. So I think I'm a little bit closer to Donald Trump than any of the other candidates.
How much of the $10 million have you spent so far?
We're going to spend the $10 million
The whole $10 million?
in the primary.
How much have you spent so far?
We're spending $1 million a week for the next 3 weeks. And like I say, we're spending our $10 million.
Spending your money, spending your energy on the road and beyond. Kevin Rinke running for the top job in the state of Michigan to unseat Governor Whitmer. Can he do it? The voters will decide. Kevin, we thank you for your time today.
You bet. Thanks, guys. Nice to see you.
When we come back, we're going to be talking to the panel about some of the issues we talked with Kevin about. Also, who should be the next governor? We'll weigh in next. Welcome back to Let It Rip. We now have our panel after, of course, we heard from Kevin Rinke, one of the guys who wants to unseat Governor Gretchen Whitmer. Joining us now on the panel, Rocky Rachowski, of course, the Oakland County chair of the Republican Party. Rocky, always good to see you. Debbie Dingell, the congresswoman, of course. We always appreciate you taking the time to come with us here on Let It Rip. Jamie Rowe with Secure My Vote and also a Republican operative. Jamie, good to see you. And Mark Lee, a businessman and someone who knows all too well how important business is and the bottom line is to all Michiganders and how politicians can affect that. Of course, joining us is Charlie Langton. This is a guy who's moderated more election coverage, I think, in the last few weeks between the GOP and the 13th Congressional District today. Charlie, always good to see you as well.
That's true.
Let's begin with what we just finished talking to our candidate about, Kevin Rinke, talking about the guns. We talked with Police Chief White today, who is just outraged and so angry at what's happened. Someone using an assault-like rifle to unload 70 shots and kill and murder a police officer. Rocky, I asked him the question I want to ask you right now. Do you agree with Chief White when he says not everyone needs an assault rifle?
I'll agree with him from the perspective that not everyone needs one. If you don't want one, you shouldn't have one. If you don't know how to use it, you shouldn't use it. And most importantly, people that have mental defects or mental disease or mental illness should not have any type of weapon. Remember that these are weapons that are semi-automatic, and a lot of people think that these are assault weapons or military-style weapons. I've served 27 years in the military. We didn't have weapons like this because military weapons are much stronger. These are semi-automatic, just like a regular pistol is. The difference here is a lot of the weapons that we're seeing in Detroit and now we're seeing in Oakland County and throughout the state of Michigan, they're weapons that were illegally bought or illegally gotten. And they would have fallen through the cracks.
Well, even if the guy out, of course, during the Independence Day parade, we know in Highland Park, got that gun, had it, there was nothing illegal about the gun that he got, yet he killed.
Well, no. Actually, there was. There were red flag laws, and Illinois has red flag laws. There were red flag laws that were broken, and now we find out today that his parents, who knew that he had one suicide attempt, an attempt to kill family members, and weapons used, knives against family members.
The parents never told the authorities.
Well, the police were called in 2 times.
But he was able to sponsor.
And these are parents that helped him purchase these weapons. These parents should be held accountable as well. These parents should go to jail.
Congresswoman Dingell, when you heard Chief White today, what was your initial reaction, and what do you think about that particular part where he said, look, no one should have that kind of a weapon in their hands?
I would vote for an assault weapon ban. Especially, I don't know why we can't at least keep it from having to be 21 if you're going to buy it. I don't know why we couldn't have passed that through the Congress. Look, I think that these are really complicated issues. I think red flag laws are one way we can try to address people that should not have guns, having guns in their hands. I know myself, I spent years trying to figure out how you would have kept guns out of the hands of someone like my father, who shouldn't have had access, who, in a moment of, he could just go like that, he shouldn't have had them. And it's also very difficult for families. We need to really understand how complicated this all is. I lost my sister ultimately to suicide, drug overdose. And I knew she was a danger to herself. And I was on the phone with lawyers and judges and in tears, desperate. And there was nothing that I could do. And we've got parents who, in the case of Illinois, why they would ever have gone along with letting their son have a permit to be able to buy those guns. But I also know what it's like to be a parent or a family member of someone who has mental health issues and your ability to help them.
Jamie Rowe, when you hear people say thoughts and prayers, and you hear often people who are victims and family members of those victims who say, you know what, I'm sick and tired of the thoughts and prayers, we got to do something. What needs to be done to stop this?
Well, I'll tell you one thing that you talk about is the assault weapons ban. And quite frankly, there was an assault weapons ban in Highland Park, Illinois. It wasn't followed. More laws that aren't followed and aren't applied do nothing. Okay? So I think we do have to do things like address people's mental illness. One thing, the interesting thing we need to understand better, why are all of these 19, 20-year-old young men who are going out and committing these atrocious acts? And I think we need to better understand why, as opposed to trying to pass some blanket law that's going to stop it. One thing I'm glad is they got this guy alive, because you can study him and perhaps we can better understand. But the fact of the matter is, I agree with Rocky completely. The parents, the father in particular, who signed the forms that allowed this kid to get the guns, needs to go to jail. I just like the Crumbleys in Oakland County, I think that these guys need to face serious legal jeopardy.
Mark Lee, when you hear, of course, about this terrible tragedy in Highland Park and then of the officer just yesterday in Detroit, what needs to be done in your mind right away?
Well, first of all, let me say my thoughts and prayers are out to the officer in Detroit. I think we have to say that. I feel for him. Honestly, I'm upset, I'm angry, I'm frustrated, and quite candidly, I don't see why these assault rifles are on the streets. We have a gun problem, we have a crime problem, not just in Detroit, but across the country. And I would love to see our legislatures, I know they're working on it, try to pass all these different laws, but the fact of the matter is, I would love to see these assault ban rifles off the streets.
I want to talk to Kevin Rinke and switch gears and talk a little bit about the election. And this was interesting, Jamie Rowe rather. Kevin Rinke was on our show just moments ago, and he basically said that the ad that was running all over the place, in which we saw a funny-looking guy who looked like the dead guy, and he questioned why Democrats always vote are the dead guys. I asked him about that. He said today to Charlie Langton and I, it was a joke. I wasn't meant to be taken literally. He spent all of that money on a joke?
No, I think he was bringing up the point that we want election reform, and it was a tongue-in-cheek way of approaching the issue instead of hammering it like we've seen happen so many other times. And it gets people's attention and brings people's focus onto the issue. And I think one thing I can tell you is it's worked, because it has brought attention to his campaign, and it has brought more attention to the issue. And you know, Kevin, I think, is the outsider who can come in and help to solve the problems that are facing our state.
You know, Jamie brings up a very valid point, and you were asking if it's a joke. You know, about 2 weeks ago, Dana Nessel stated that her commentary about having drag queens in schools was a joke after the fact when it was brought up, and the media left her alone. So now when Kevin Rinke brings up, it's a joke, it's a humorous ad. And the ways we learn in politics, the best way you can catch someone's heart and mind and connect them to come out and vote is by humor or by touching their emotions. I mean, that's what he was doing. And now we're suddenly making it an issue?
I talked to a lot of people about the ad, and the people that I've talked to thought it was kind of silly, but they thought it made any sense. And they could not understand why he was running the commercial, because it flies in the face, I think, of what a politician, congresswoman, should be doing, which is focus on the issues at hand. But that ad was such an insult to a lot of people who actually saw it, because to the average consumer, the average viewer who saw it, thought that, hey, he's basically saying that dead people do vote for Democrats, or whatever the case might be.
I think
and that's not the case.
The fact where Mark, you actually talked to people about the ad.
Yes.
That's what he wanted to do.
He won.
He won.
He got his point.
I don't care if he had all kinds of things. Dead Republicans voted. It doesn't matter. There was a funny ad. You talk about it. He got a lot of attention.
But a lot of people who saw the ad, Charlie, didn't laugh at it. They didn't laugh at it.
Dead Republicans do. Congresswoman Dingell.
He won.
Congresswoman Dingell talking about his particular force, the force of Tudor Dixon or Kevin Rinke against Governor Whitmer. Anyone shaken in the Democratic Party with these two coming at Whitmer right now?
I think that we need to take this election seriously, whether you're Republican or Democrat. I think there are a lot of people, I'm going to be really blunt, I think there are a lot of people who are fed up with politics, period.
Amen.
They're worried about inflation, they're worried about escalating costs. There are a lot of women that are furious at what the Supreme Court did, and they don't see people working together or doing anything to help them. So I think that any candidate on either side of the aisle needs to be focused for this election and take it seriously.
Congresswoman, for the first time in 10 years, we've seen the population of the state of Michigan drop. The population of Detroit is dropping. Mayor Duggan and Governor Whitmer both said and ran on the fact that they wanted to attract business and attract people back to Michigan. It hasn't worked.
Well, I'm going to tell you that we need to focus on economic development. We need to worry about what's happening in the auto industry. This is one of my passions.
Did the governor do enough during her term so far?
She has. The state legislature and the governor had to work together. That finally began to happen, but it took Ford going to Kentucky and Tennessee to get people in both parties' attention. We need to be working in and not. Oh, no, they were not moving forward. They were not. They didn't think it mattered, and they didn't understand that we weren't competitive with other states. I talked to other states. They say when they go to to other companies, they go to another state and they roll out the red carpet. They don't know if someone's a Republican or Democrat. They say, we want you. And the federal, state, and local level work together.
Well, Mark Lee, that didn't happen in Michigan, did it? You're a business guy. That didn't happen in Michigan.
Republicans disincentivized this state.
It's interesting that they went to all red Republican states.
No.
Yes.
Point, period.
Well, some places that they're going to places like Texas, Tennessee, and Florida.
Republicans.
None of which, not only are they Republican, they don't have an individual income tax. And Kevin Rinke is the one guy who's brought up a big idea to attract people to our state, to bring talent. You want to bring talent to our state? Get rid of the state income tax and let people.
I'll give you the final word before we go to break here. Did the governor do enough in her term to attract business?
Under the circumstances, she's done about as good a job as she could do, quite frankly.
Correct.
The bottom line is this. We as a state, we have to make it attractive for businesses to want to come here. That's the bottom line. Issue number two is that we're still losing young people to other states. We got to find a way to keep those young people here in the state of Michigan as well as the city of Detroit.
There's a lot at stake, and of course, we want to give our panel a chance to give them their final thoughts. That's when we come back. Final thoughts with our panel. We start with Mark Lee. Mark, what's the one thing that people aren't talking about that voters care about the most?
I know the one thing that people are talking about that they do care about is inflation. I mean, I think the cost of things are rising so quickly. It's incumbent on people to understand inflation and how it can impact your pocketbook. And then number two, let's go to the election very quickly, is I encourage all people watching to make sure that you study all candidates, the issues, and identify someone who best represents you.
All right. Jamie, your thoughts. What are we not talking about that people at home you think care about a lot?
Yeah, I think the economy is the one thing that isn't being talked about. I know people on the other side of the aisle don't want to talk about it at all. They want to talk about everything but the economy right now. And we need people with big, bold ideas. And this is one of the reasons why I am working for Kevin Rinke, is he does have a big idea, which is to get rid of the state income tax so that we can help families and small businesses deal with the high cost of inflation, so they can spend money on what they do, and then we can finally, for the first time in forever, shrink the size of state government, which needs to happen.
Congresswoman, enough being done to help the economy, and what is something that people aren't talking about?
Well, first of all, I will tell you that my two colleagues don't want to talk about the economy. They just simply want to say that blame Democrats, and I talk about the economy every single day because I know what people are paying for gas and what they're paying at the grocery store, and that big oil is gouging people. I think the thing people aren't talking about, or I'm hearing talk about, and that my two colleagues who I love but are on either side of me, is all of the decisions that were made by the Supreme Court in a period of weeks: separation of church and state, Roe, environmental impact, etc. There are a lot of Americans worried about what the court
Rocky, your
did.
thoughts on that? Are we not talking about that enough?
We're not talking about a lot of things, but Debbie, and we love you as well, we respect you, but you're wrong on that. We talk about gas prices because we know that it was the Biden-Harris administration and the Democrats in Washington that stopped the drilling and are buying oil from Saudis and selling oil to China, but but won't let America
The
draw.
oil
But more
companies have
importantly, my 30 seconds, most
9,000
importantly, the number one,
permits.
no, come on.
They do.
People know the price
5
is gone
seconds
up,
left.
but real quickly, the number one big thing in the story of 2023 is property taxes for business and individuals. Look at Proposal A and what inflation is doing to
throw
poor
jobs
people.
in.
If there's a
Throw
big
jobs
debate
in it.
happening, Charlie Langton's the one who's going to moderate it. You'll see it, of course. Thank you all for joining us on the panel. That does it for this edition of Let It Rip.